Questions either individually or as a group?
Matt, how did you meet with the governor go yesterday?
Well, I think it was, well, first of all, it was a meeting of larger city mayors in the state of Indiana. As you've read in some accounts this morning in interviews from other parts of the state, I think it went well. I think it was positive. I think the governor made it clear that he has rules or guardrails in place, as he's called them, that the legislature can't veer off from one side or the other. It's still unclear as to whether or not within those guardrails we have replacement revenue, and I think that's going to be the key factor going forward in discussions with both the administration and members of the General Assembly.
Is there a proposal between the House and the Senate that you guys prefer more?
Replacement revenue proposals, or is there, or Senate Bill 1 and 1001, do we prefer more?
Yeah, between those.
Well, it's kind of like asking my kid if he'd rather be grounded for a month or 2 weeks. I think with a gun to my head, I would prefer Senate Bill 1. However, it's not an optimal situation, and I don't think it's something we can live with, and it still starts us down that road to complete elimination. Without full replacement revenue, we can't support either proposal.
What has been the lawmakers' response to the whole concept of replacement revenue? Like you say, Michigan, when they phased down some of their business personal property tax, it took the money from the state coffers. So when you folks talk to lawmakers, what is their thoughts on giving up some of the state's revenue to replace what you guys would lose?
I'll ask David to jump in here as well. But, Abdul, we continue to talk about local government and how we can find efficiencies and we can do better and we can save more money. Well, I'll tell you, we've lost hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to the tax caps already. We all run pretty efficient forms of local government service. To suggest that there is more meat on the bone and that we can cut more, I think, is a falsity. So I think the legislature has to understand that without full replacement, it's a no deal for us. And it has to come at the state level. We're not asking the legislature to get rid of the business personal property tax. Now, that's not a proposal from any of us. Maybe it makes sense from an economic development standpoint, but so does providing police and fire protection, quality of life amenities in our communities, and all those types of issues. David probably has some other things he'd want to say.
Good question. Again, David Ballworth with the Association of Indiana Counties. In committee in the House, we talked about this issue that, in essence, the state is asking us to forgo business personal property taxes and make this decision. Our revenue is generally capped, and what we've asked is that if an incentive might be if the county took this step, that somehow they would get to capture a greater share of the economic development revenue that was generated. Most local units have an income tax around 1.5%. Most that's dedicated to property tax relief. A lot of it's not new revenue. If we could somehow, if we were going to take this step and create these state jobs, that somehow we would get a portion of the state income tax that comes to us. I mean, what could happen here is we make the sacrifice, really don't generate any new revenue for us, and the state benefits from all the new job creation that could occur from this. But again, with this scenario, we can do personal property tax abatement now and promise job creation, but in House Bill 1001, that actually is removed as a possibility if somebody took this step. So we definitely think if we're going to be the ones making the sacrifice, a way to potentially replace that money is to give us a piece of the state income tax.
So what's been the lawmakers' response?
That they need that money for state operations.
So, no.
No.
Any other questions?
Now, what do you think, and the governor keeps saying he doesn't want to unduly harm local governments, and how do you respond to that when he's coming up with no replacement, no revenue, and nobody else is? Isn't that being a little disingenuous?
Well, I think when you talk about undue harm, that's a term that needs better definition from our standpoint. I think, to us, again, $1 of lost revenue at this point in the history of local governments in the state of Indiana is undue harm. So I think our definition of undue harm is much different than the legislative or administration's definition of undue harm. And I think that they are willing to work on that. It just remains to be seen where we end up. So I hope it's not disingenuous. I think that their thoughts are in the right place in making sure that local governments are not harmed. But the devil will remain in the detail, and we have to see that replacement revenue come in a bill in the process at some point.
Has anyone asked the governor what revenue can be used to replace this? Has he responded at all?
I think all of us have probably suggested one form of replacement revenue or another. You know, Michigan uses a use tax. There's been discussion about all kinds of different forms. I think it's a matter of the legislative folks deciding what works best for them and what they can live with in order to replace the revenue that's lost.
This is one of those rare issues where all you guys come together despite your differences on other stuff.
We have no differences. I think everyone here would tell you we are 100% unified on this issue. You know that didn't happen on the tax cap issue. You know it hasn't happened on other major concerns over the past. But I think we all see this as the most significant piece of revenue loss coming down the road that local governments have ever seen in the state of Indiana. All right, thanks everybody, appreciate it. I'm sure we'll all hang around if you want to talk to anybody individually.